Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're really diving into the art of sampling. We're going to go way beyond just talking about breakbeats to ask a much bigger question. A question about what music even is today.
So think about it. We live in a world where music can be played on an instrument, sure, but it can also just be assembled from sounds that already exist. That line has gotten super blurry, which brings us to the heart of what we're exploring here. Is the sampler a brilliant evolution of how we make music, or is it just a fancy digital shortcut?
To even begin to answer that, we have to kind of rethink what an instrument can even be in the modern world. So first, let's make the case for the sampler as a really powerful art form. One that doesn't just play notes, but actually lets you orchestrate history itself. And the source material gives us this fantastic idea to work with, the sampler as a meta-instrument. Now, what does that mean? Well, a normal orchestra is all about arranging notes across different instruments, right? Violins, trumpets, drums. A sampler, though, arranges chunks of recorded history. It's literally an instrument that plays other sounds, other instruments, even specific moments frozen in time.
And this leads to this really cool idea of the ghost in the machine. See, when a producer pulls up a cello sample, they aren't just getting a note, no way. They're getting the echo of the room where it was recorded, the warmth of that specific microphone, the totally unique fingerprint of the cellist's performance. It's like every single sample is its own little sonic fossil.
So the really crucial point here is that this is not just about grabbing a cool sound. A great producer, a great artist, is making a very deliberate choice. They're taking a tiny piece of musical DNA with all its built-in history and texture, and they're intentionally weaving that into a brand new story. But of course, there's a huge counter-argument here that we absolutely have to talk about. When does this incredible, powerful tool stop being an instrument and just become a crutch?
This is what the source material calls the imitation trap. And it happens when the goal isn't really creativity, it's just saving a buck. Using a sample library of horns because it's cheaper than hiring live players. The source has this brilliant, kind of brutal term for it, digital taxidermy. You get the skin of the sound, the shape of it, but there's no life, there's no soul inside.
And this brings us to what might be the most important metaphor for understanding the whole debate. Is the sampler being used as a mirror, or is it being used as a prism? The mirror, well, it just reflects what's already there. It mimics the surface, but it totally misses those human things. The sound of a breath, the tiny little imperfections. But the prism takes that original sound and it refracts it. It bends it into a whole spectrum of new colors and new textures.
So where's that turning point? How do you get from one to the other? Well, that moment when imitation becomes real art, that happens in the process of transformation.
This is where the real magic happens. This is sonic alchemy. It's in the act of what the source calls recontextualization. So when a producer starts chopping up a vocal or reversing a piano loop or slowing a drum beat way down, they're not trying to copy the original sound anymore. They're breaking it into pieces to build something totally new, something that couldn't have existed any other way. And this is just a perfect illustration of that process. Check this out. You start with a really sharp, bright jazz trumpet hit. But you slow it down by 400%, you stretch it way out. That sharp, brassy attack, it just melts away. And what you're left with is a completely different sound, this soft, atmospheric, kind of haunting pad. You see? At this point, it's not even really sampling anymore. It's become a totally unique form of sound design.
Okay, so this all leads us to our final point, where we realize that this whole debate, imitation versus orchestration, it isn't really about the machine, is it? It's about the person who's using it.
The sampler itself, it's neutral. It doesn't have an opinion. It has zero creative will of its own. It can totally be a tool for lazy copying, or it can be a gateway to creating sounds and textures that a traditional orchestra couldn't even dream of making. It all comes down to the vision of the artist.
And ultimately, that's what the real art of sampling is all about. It's an active discovery. It's about listening super closely to a recorded sound and finding the secret potential, the hidden music that's locked inside it, and then giving that music a brand new voice.
So the big takeaway here is this. Sampling is only imitation if the artist has nothing to say. But when an artist has a real vision, the sampler becomes this incredibly expansive and, you could argue the most honest orchestra of our time. It's using the sounds of our shared history to create the music of our future.
So the next time you're listening to a song and a sound just grabs your ear, ask yourself this question. Is the artist just holding up a mirror to something that already exists, or are they using a prism to bend that history into something you've never heard before?